Adeline Wong, profonda compositrice, eclettica, ardita, malese di Singapore, ha lavorato in Singapore ed è di Singapore, così dimostra questa conoscenza dell'arte dei suoni, mescolando sapienza, arguzia, poi tutti i materiali, che sono tantissimi, con grande eleganza, e lavora su scelte che si impongono sul panorama internazionale come punti di riferimento importantissimi della tradizione musicale malese. Peraltro io conosco bene perché ho lavorato per 4 anni in Malaysia, e poi per la musica di tradizione, poi anche la musica contemporanea. Tra l'altro dagli anni 2000 sviluppa un interessante percorso attento al territorio, dato alla musica d'arte come musica notata, estremamente felice, riuscito come percorso. Allora Wong, quando ha deciso di occuparsi di composizione musicale, cioè esperienza appunto della musica malese, nella musica malese, i bambini iniziano a suonare fin da piccini perché hanno proprio degli strumenti tradizionali piccoli loro. Anche per lei è andata così?
Adeline Wong, thoughtful, eclectic, a Malaysian composer now in Singapore. She demonstrates an unlimited knowledge of the arts of sound by mixing all the material at her disposal with skill and wit, treating them with great elegance. Her choices impose themselves on the international scene as important landmarks of Malaysian contemporary musical tradition, which I know very well because I worked there for 4 years, which since the 2000s she developed an interesting path, careful with the theory, linked to the art music as noted music, a path extremely successful and also happy. I ask you now, when did you decide to become involved in musical composition? I heard that in Malaysia, children start playing small traditional instruments created especially for them. Did it happen to you too?
No, for me, my music education started like most Malaysian kids. You know, we normally start with the piano, the Western instrument at my time, during my time. And I started learning the piano when I was about 6 years old. And I did very simple composition classes and lessons when I was about 7 years old. And I continued the journey of being a musician and a composer until right now. So I've always done music since young. And no, unfortunately, I did not learn a traditional music instrument when I was young. So actually, that is something that I wish I actually learned when I was young, so that, that would enrich my musical background even more. But it's okay. It's never too late to learn. So I am enjoying learning the traditional sounds of my own country and trying to make it part of my musical language as well.
Adeline Wong, lei ha saputo utilizzare un connubio straordinario, la sua bellissima composizione, Impugna Yang, creato nel 2007 con la direzione di Matthias Barnett, visitato proprio l'orchestra d'archi per Joshua Tan nel 2020, nel quale fonde proprio scrittura orchestra tradizionale della Ombre, bellissimo. Allora le chiedo quanto incide nella sua composizione la poetica dei suoni per quella specifica area asiatica, peraltro, cosa in particolare l'ha influenzata invece della cultura occidentale.
You have been able to create an extraordinary combination in the beautiful, please correct my pronunciation, Impugna Yang Berole Sitadewi, I don't know if it's right, which was composed in 2007 under the direction of Matthias Barnett and revised for string orchestra in 2020, conducted by Joshua Tan. In this composition, you have mixed modern compositional writing and traditional wayang quilt orchestra, the shadow theater. So I ask you, how much does the poetical sound of your land and that specific Asian area affect your composition? And if you have been affected by a particular Western culture?
Oh, okay. For that very special project, yes, Ampunya yang beroleh Sita Dewi, which translated to English means he who owns Sita Dewi. Yeah, that one has strong references to traditional Malaysian music, traditional sounds. And yes, and I wanted that to be part of the language for that particular project I was doing. And what has really interesting and new for me at that time was the use of oral tradition material, meaning the musicians do not read music. It's all by listening and the repertoire that they've already learned, handed down to them many, many years ago. And each time when they play something for me, it's never the same. So there's an element of improvisation in traditional music, which I find to be very interesting. And, you know, with Western music, of course, we have improvisations as well. But this is something very special because it's very spontaneous when they play it. And also to learn about the instruments. In particular, there's this woodwind instrument called the sarunai, which is equivalent to our Western oboe. The sound is very different. I mean, if you compare it to the Western oboe, in a way that it's more, the tone is a little bit more harsh, I find. But that is also the beautiful sound of that instrument itself. So for me, in that particular project, I begin to really just love the sounds of music in the instruments for their own unique sounds and not try to take it away and do something else. Instead, I try to embrace that new language that I am exposed to. And together with, you know, my own harmonies, which is obviously Western based, I tried to put these two sounds and see how it worked together. And of course, there was also the shadow puppet element from the puppet master. So the puppet master's voice was also an instrument. And I also used that in part of my composition, how it influenced the writing as well. So yeah, many, many levels of complications here in that project, which was a very, very rewarding experience for me.
Bellissimo. E allora in Occidente, maestro Wong, la presenza di donne compositrici anche di questa è ancora vista come evento straordinario. Qual è la situazione femminile nel sud-est asiatico?
Sadly, in the West, the presence of female composers and conductors is still unusual. What is the situation of women in this field in Southeast Asia and Malaysia also?
I think, I mean, it's the same everywhere else in the world, how, you know, of course, you know, women, there are less women composers and conductors in the world, of course, but it's slowly improving. And there are definitely more support, you know, there's more women composers rising and coming to do, what I mean is more women coming out to do composition, to do conducting. So it's definitely improving compared to, you know, maybe 20 years ago. And, you know, compared to when I was in school, there's also more interest in music as well. So I see it as a steady growth in terms of female coming out to be composers and conductors.
Il suo campo d'azione, quello compositivo, è proprio vastissimo. Si muove dalla scrittura colta, accademica, appunto, a quella etica, spinge fino all'elettronica. E questo sempre creando un suo stile con alchimie molto sofisticate. Non rinuncia al tonale di eccellenze novecentesche e al lirico proprio di matrice orientale. Come risolve tutto questo nella notazione?
Your compositional repertoire is very wide. You shift from academic writing to ethnic style and also electronic music, creating as a result a very sophisticated alchemy. You do not compromise the tonal style, heritage of the 20th century, nor the lyrical style of the East. Usually, how do you solve the notation problem?
In terms of notation, I think that's really part of the responsibility of a composer, whether you're working with Western trained musicians or non-Western trained musicians. It's your responsibility to come up with a solution. So like, for example, I mentioned in terms of improvisation in the project that I did. I came up with some ways of writing a fixed collection of pitches. And within that fixed collection of pitches, the musicians can improvise within a specific time frame. And of course, the conductor, when you talk about pieces that are improvised, is very important. And I was very lucky to have a very good conductor to help in that two sound worlds of improvised and notated music. So there's always a way to solve the problem. And that's one of our responsibilities being a composer, to solve situations, and that's a common issue, is a notation problem. Yeah.
Adeline Wong, che differenze ci sono dal suo punto di vista, se poi ci sono differenze, musica di tradizione colta e musica per film, nella quale la presenza femminile è più sporadica?
What difference do you think there are, if there are any, between classical music and music used in film? In which one do you think that the female presence is more sporadic?
I think they're both, whether classical music or film music, it's a matter of preference, which you prefer to work with. And they are both, in both fields of the different types of music, there are representatives of female composers in both classical and film music. And it's a matter of which you actually like to do more. So, I mean, I had also a good experience working with a female director in a movie called Charming, which is Mirror. And the process of writing for film is very different than just writing for pure music, or what we call classical music. And so it depends on the individual whether they actually want to be working with a director, or would you just prefer to write something that's purely yours, and you have full authority over your own music. Because with film music, there's you might write all the music, but perhaps only 30 or 40% of it might actually eventually end up being used for the film itself. So, but there's also very interesting ways of looking at music when you work with another art form, which is film. So again, I think it's a matter of preference, which composer prefers.
Maestro, cosa vede per il futuro delle nuove generazioni?
How do you see the future of the new generations?
Oh, the new generation, I think they have good and bad things happening in terms of the music world. The good is they have so much exposure to all types of music. Music has developed so much. And also with technology, I don't think you need to be a trained musician to be actually composing music. There's so many apps and so many programs that you can use to, just make music. So, but the thing is, because there's so many choices, the younger generation has a tough time actually finding their own voice, because there's so much music out there compared to when I was a student. I tell my own students the same thing. There's so much music out there written now. And I think the best thing is to just be honest with yourself, to write music that you really want to write, and to write music that is what you are passionate about. And I think that itself would speak out, and that would become a unique voice of an individual that you can never take it away from. It can be anything, it can be pop, it can be film, it can be jazz, but whatever that you feel most passionate and most honest, that is yours. So that is my advice to the younger generation. Choose something that is uniquely your sound.
Grazie Maestro Wong, grazie infinite.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
thank you. I hope that was okay.
Yeah.